Hi guys, happy Tuesday and welcome to another episode of The Come Up. Today we are lucky. We're not just joined by one guest. Today we have two guests. Karens, if you're listening, did you hear that? We're talking to two managers right now. This is sensory overload for the Karens. Here we go. I'm here with two Eanes brothers. That is Aaron and Andre Eanes. And these two are the masterminds behind the success of the two-time Super Bowl winner, Travis Kelce, and founders of the growing sports management, their firm, A&A Management. I'm about to list a client list from them, and you're about to lose your mind. Are you ready? It's a wide range of clients, but here we go, including Kansas City Chiefs Super Bowl champion tight end, and we just discussed this. God, it's as big as it gets. Travis Kelce. Cleveland Browns All-Pro cornerback Denzel Ward, who's insane, incredible. His off-the-field presence is amazing, and we're going to hear from his mother, Nicole, in a minute here. She's our special guest today, so get ready. That's coming at the end of this podcast. And then we have wide receiver Donovan Peoples-Jones, 2022 Rising All-Star, and second-team All-Rookie NBA breakout Bones Hyland. And get ready for this, All-Pro cornerback Joe Haden, just to name a few. Come on. Who's counting? Guys, the Eanes brothers oversee day-to-day operations. They evaluate the overall success of the organization, maintain awareness for their clients. But we talk about in this podcast about marketing and advertising and building lasting legacies throughout their careers for their clients and into retirement. It's unbelievable because we talked about like the investing in Olipop early on. I mean, this thing goes crazy. I mean, when you talk about some of the deals that they have a first look deal with ABC Disney with Travis Kelce. They have the Walter Payton Man of the Year nominee for Denzel Ward, their client, who again, we're going to talk to his mother. Bones Hyland has a 6-figure shoe deal and global campaign with Under Armour. Travis Kelce is co-founder of the Hilo Gummies and had his first music festival, Kelce Jam, recently. I'm done talking, guys. I'm done. Thank you for tuning in. Happy Tuesday. Here we go. Without further ado, another episode of The Come Up. Enjoy. So first off, thank you guys for being here, and this is an honor to be able to talk to you.
Oh, no. Thanks for having us, man.
We're going to get fun with it, and then we're going to get into the serious questions.
Yep.
So, are y'all the same age? Are you twins?
Yeah. Twins.
Twins?
Twins.
You know?
Twins.
Next question: who's older? No.
You're roommates. Actually, I do have that question. Who won the womb battle?
I think I won by just maneuvering out first. Getting into. But our mom had a C-section, so I don't think it really.
Yeah, I wasn't gonna add that, but
Same time?
I was on the way out actually. But,
Did you guys play organized sports growing up?
Yeah, both
Sure
played.
did.
Pretty much. Grow up in Ohio, I think you have to play sports. I don't know if you have to, but you start with soccer, you start with football, basketball. I think you
that's
name
pretty
it.
much it. Yeah, basketball.
Basketball.
I wanted to go to the NBA. There was no telling me I wasn't going to the NBA.
And when did that end? When did that end?
That ended freshman year in college. I gave it up. I played college basketball at a small school in Cincinnati. We went from like St. Edward High School in Cleveland, being on ESPN and playing in front of thousands, to like 3 people in a bubble out in the middle of nowhere in Cincinnati, Ohio. That's when I was like,
Yeah.
I don't think the NBA is gonna work.
You played basketball, is that right, Aaron?
Yep, played basketball, played football, and then pretty much I think my senior year of high school realized I wanted to kind of get into the sports business side of things, and that really made me basically after high school not want to play.
Not want to play.
Yeah.
What was like the idea of having a career in sports? Was that something that you guys always saw from the beginning?
Yeah, we were, went to, St. Ed's High School in, Cleveland, which a lot of our friends were able to play, in, big-time college programs. We saw people that, formerly went there, that went pro, and we had a really good friend that was one of the best basketball players in the country that kind of wanted to go pro, and he, reached out. We were at lunch, and he was like, "Oh, you should be my manager." And I'm like, "Yeah, like whatever does that mean?" And I've always liked business, so kind of knew that like marrying business and sports would would have been an interesting thing, and so kind of from high school really knew that's kind of what I wanted to do, and wanted to figure out how actually to accomplish that was the biggest thing.
Yeah. And
we come from an entrepreneurial background too. Our parents own franchise Burger Kings and work with some of the Browns players and some of the Indians players. So we were kind of immersed in that at an early age, like not knowing what we were around, but we were always around, professional athletes with our godfather playing for the Browns growing up. So, for me, it wasn't necessarily, like I said, I still had hoop dreams for a long time. I didn't really give those up. I knew in the background, being involved in sports was something we wanted to do. And to Aaron's point, the guy that he's talking about, I played AAU basketball with him from 5th grade all the way. I followed him to high school. We had won AAU national championships together, all that stuff. So, I knew I wanted to be around sports as well, but wasn't really necessarily thinking about the business side. You know what I mean? I'm like, my brother's about to represent me was my thought. You know what I mean? He probably didn't believe it, but I
shakes his head.
I didn't give it up until I gave it up. You know what I mean?
I think I had a conversation freshman year. I was like, you think you're going pro?
Maybe overseas. No, like literally freshman year, I was still thinking about going overseas.
And you just were like, I got to go into the business side of it?
So what happened was Travis Kelce and DJ was my best friends at the time. DJ was one of my best friends at the time. He was roommates with Travis. And when basketball season was over, I was just hanging out with them all the time. And I was like, this is what I'm missing, going to practice every day, like partying and having a good time. And then I remember like it was yesterday, I joined a fraternity called Alpha Phi Alpha, AA, Cincinnati. Shout out to y'all. And they were like, you're not going to the NBA, right? You should just come be an alpha, kick it with us, and transfer to the University of Cincinnati and call it a day. And probably 3 months later, I did exactly that. So,
and that was it.
Yeah, I didn't listen to Aaron, but I listened to that random frat brother that now is like one of my closest mentors. So it's
hey,
everything comes full circle.
So speaking of like mentors, but I want an influence. Who were some of your biggest influencers, like or influence in the sports world when you were growing up?
I mean, I think you just look at we were born in '89. I mean, I think you look at the Kobe's, you look at the Michael Jordans, you look at the Tigers, you think of, even like, the, Mark McGuire's, Barry Bonds, like, Cal Ripken's. I mean, you just think about like how many, like, I think sports at that time, when we were growing up, I mean, you kind of get to see two different lenses. You see, I think the traditional, like, reason why sports and superstardom is what it was because, you had the Deion Sanders, you had the Michaels, you had the Tigers, you had so many people that became like, the name, to represent a sport because you still kind of had that, I would say, ecosystem where, the leagues and the media companies kind of dominated, who got coverage. And then you fast forward to, we also grew up in Cleveland where you had LeBron and, he was the chosen one on Sports Illustrated, coming in, when we were in, I think, middle school, high school. And then you see kind of the rise of social media, that started when we were in, seniors in high school.
Yeah.
And you could see, the change between like the old guard of like how I would say athletes were, kind of held up as stars. And then you see kind of like the new guard where like the athletes are trying to take more ownership because they're able to go kind of direct to consumer and understand their fan. And so I think there's been so many good examples of, just people we've been able to, see and kind of, I would say, observe or get to know and talk to, especially, like I said, the older guys. And you're able to really just, understand ultimately, what it is that made me love the business.
And are you a big LeBron fan now that you guys are Ohio people?
Yeah, huge.
Huge?
Yeah, I mean, you got to respect, what LeBron's done.
Yeah.
I mean, it's, it's kind of crazy, for someone to be given that much, I would say expectations, at a very early age and being able to, navigate all that, you have to navigate and then ultimately still becoming, and surpassing, I would say, the expectations.
Yeah.
So I think that's impressive. And then, we have a lot of people, like, not just in sports around Cleveland that, are very similar. If you look at Machine Gun Kelly, if you look at Kid Cudi, if you look at, the Paul brothers, if you look at the Russo brothers, if you look at, a lot of people that, were able to kind of do things in a way that was truly their own and at the same time in industries that were not expected for them at the time and, really kind of succeed. And so I think that's also, I would say, even more so than like the athletes because a lot of those people are around our age and their teams are around our age. So being able to kind of learn and see and talk and to understand, the processes. And I think, that's been, I would say, more of like an inspiration than I would say any athlete.
For sure.
Because, at the end of the day, like you were mentioning, the reason for, your, podcast is, there's a village that makes things happen and a lot of people don't see that village. And so being able to see that and being able to understand that was kind of the most inspiring part.
And you get the business side of it. So when LeBron leaves the Cavs, is that something that's like that hit you guys hard, or is it your favorite team? Sorry, I should ask that first.
Yeah,
What's
yeah.
your favorite team?
Cavs definitely was our favorite team. Was my favorite team.
Yeah, I'm not a huge basketball guy. I'm not gonna lie. So
Okay.
I mean, like the Browns were my favorite team,
Yeah.
but like the Browns were not that good. When I was growing up, and I mean they're still working on it now. So
Yeah.
when LeBron left, it was like but you kind of knew he was gonna leave. I mean, so like it was one of those things where it was frustrating as a fan, because like those games were great to see, but then at the same time, you understand like, hey, if you've been in the same city your whole life, right, and it's kind of like him going to college. Like I think he mentioned something like that, right? Like if you not a lot of people stay in the same place their whole life, and so I think you kind of look at it from the personal aspect, and I think you see kind of why someone makes the decisions that they make, which is ultimately you got to respect.
Yeah.
And just that's decade talk for a second here. Y'all started this in 2012. The A&A started in 2012. Is that correct?
Yeah.
But you oversee a lot of the different careers of many different athletes. And Aaron, you mainly focus on the marketing side of things, while Andre, you do the contract and the wealth management. And what led you to start your own company? And like, can you tell me a little bit more about those roles that you guys have?
Yeah, I mean, I think going back to that conversation my friend had, I was like, hey, I want you to be my manager. I'm like, well, coming from the the franchise, having, like Andre said, having a family that was in franchising, you want to understand everything that you're getting into. And so when he told me that, I was like, what does that mean, right? And so I thought about, okay, if you're going to look at and break down, the things that go into that, you need to first understand, the area that they're getting into. So understanding, leagues, understanding teams, and understanding what an agent does, and, figuring out like what's my best fit. And so, obviously I was in high school, so I picked Bowling Green State University because they had a sports management program. I'm like, okay, generally speaking, it was close to, he chose to go to Michigan State. It was close enough. A lot of my friends were going to the Big Ten schools, so it was still kind of close enough. And then I was still close enough to, big cities like Cincinnati, Cleveland, Detroit, where they had big pro sports teams. So, and we were fortunate because of our, like I said, like our dad worked with, different baseball players and different, football players. So, at St. Ed's, we do a senior project. So it's basically like shadow a job you want to do. And I was able to shadow Mark Shapiro, who was the GM of the Cleveland Indians at the time, now Guardians, and was able to kind of meet the media relations people. And like Mark Shapiro's dad was like an OG, like sports agent. And so like he has a really good book on kind of like all the things that, he kind of went through of like being an agent. And so just really understanding kind of that lens. And then when I went to Bowling Green, I was working with the football program and working as like I would say essentially everything from recruiting to being like, when you're at a small school, like the beauty is like you get to do a lot. So I was able to work directly with the players on like learning the playbooks and learning scouting. Mike Martz, the former Super Bowl winning coach for the Rams, his son was actually like a GA, so he was teaching me how to break down film. And then we had a new coaching staff come in, Dave Clawson, who's now at at Wake Forest, and he was known as like a program builder. So like as someone who loved business and someone who loved kind of like building of organizations, like he was someone that came from Tennessee, and he was known to take programs that didn't really have programs and making them big. Not making them big, but making them successful. So I wanted to kind of learn, what that looks like. And so I was able to kind of just get a firsthand experience of like the life of like not only a college athlete, but the life of college athletes transitioning into the, pros. And then I was able to go to the Browns and intern and do a similar role. And that's where I actually first met Joe Haden, his rookie year. And kind of saw the difference between, a lot of people assume, especially back then, you'd go on every agency's website and it all looked the same. It was all beautiful. It's all like, oh, we do all this stuff. And then you realize, that all the services that they list on the website are usually just like boilerplate services. And so the business concept was simple. It's like, how do we actually deliver on the services that these firms say they deliver on?
Yeah.
And then at the same time, how do we make sure that we're really good at it? And so because I saw, guys coming into the league with, friends as managers or family members and things of that nature. And, not that saying that's a right or a wrong approach, but I would generally say when you look at a lot of the most successful people in sports, the their teams aren't usually their family or friends. And the reason being is because at the end of the day, you have to be able to advise. You have to be able to give real feedback. And a lot of the times you also have to like learn and constantly learn. You're learning every day. And if you're not challenging yourself to do that, it's very hard to advise someone, in a way that's authentic, but at the same time that's actually going to, educate, but at the same time help them figure out what's best for them, when they also might not give you the respect you deserve even because of that prior relationship. Yeah. Right? And so I would say that's a long-winded way to say how it got started, but ultimately the idea was simple. It was like we were fortunate to be in a situation where we knew athletes, right? And then we were fortunate to be in a situation and a time, honestly, where being able to start a business like this wasn't actually, in my opinion, looking back, I could say it wasn't that difficult, but at the same time, it was at a good time because it was just when social media was starting. It was just when athletes were starting to think that they could have some ownership in what they want to do. And at the same time, it was starting to, the big agency structure, even though it still exists, it was starting to shift a little bit where like LeBron and his team started LRMR, right? And that was the first management company that started just as a management specific company.
Is that Maverick Carter and Rich Paul? Or
so
is
it was L for LeBron, R for Randy, M for Mav, R for Rich.
Got it.
Right? And so that was like the first thing that they started, even though LeBron was with Aaron Goodwin at the time. So, being able to see stuff like that, I was like, okay, that's an interesting data point.
Yeah.
And then, you start to see kind of from afar people's trajectory in sports and entertainment and management and et cetera. And you look at it and you're like, okay, and you just got to figure out what makes it yours.
Yeah. And you knew Travis for years. So did y'all both grew up with Travis, right?
So we didn't grow up with Travis. We played each other in the AAU circuit. So we were talking about LeBron, like in motivation and whatnot. I played for LeBron's first ever AAU team. We were called the King James Shooting Stars, and we used to just know Travis between the circuit. But when I made the decision to go to University of Cincinnati, he ended up being roommates with one of my friends from middle school, elementary school that we knew pretty much our entire life, and that's how we got close. But my background's completely, I would say, different than Aaron's, but kind of if you marry the two, it makes sense for an athlete. I went to the University of Cincinnati and started a event management business. I started throwing events all over the city. Our first client, actually, the A&A Management, was a DJ, and his name was DJ Magnificent. He's actually the guy.
Was he magnificent?
He was magnificent. I mean, we book all the events, we book all the venues. And for me, it was more about getting their contracts together, building their relationships, getting him in the right rooms, introducing him to the right people so he can continue to grow his DJ business. But then also, I met a guy named Dennis Cummings, and he kind of helped us get into the event management stage. So I was booking venues, throwing parties, and all the athletes would come. They wanted to figure out what to do on the weekends. They'd be calling me and what's the move? And I'm at the line, skipping the line, et cetera, like that. So for me, it was always about building relationships and connecting dots. That's what I love to do when it comes to this side of the business. But I had to find my niche and what I really love doing. So I started working in finance. So I worked in a bank. I worked as a banker. So when I tell you, I went from getting clients credit cards to getting them loans, commercial loans, auto loans, mortgages, checking accounts, savings accounts, basic things that a lot of guys coming out of college as athletes don't even think about. They don't know how to get a credit card. They don't have a credit card. They haven't built credit, right? So that was the basic level of that. And then I remember when Travis signed his second deal, I went over to wealth management, to kind of manage money at a higher level, right? There it was completely different. It was, high net worth individuals, $1 million or more, and I kind of really learned what it was like to build wealth, right? And I remember it was yesterday, I would meet with all the private equity groups. And they'd come in and they'd talk about all the deals that they invested in, all the companies they invested in, why they invested in, and the diligence process that they go through to figure out if it's a good deal or not. And, all knowing in the background, A&A Management is becoming something, right? And I'm learning as much as I can. Like I always say, I got my PhD in wealth management, and then I think we ended up signing a couple first round picks, and I left. But I left with the knowledge of, okay, if you're going to build wealth, here's the right way to do it. Yeah. If you're going to invest your money, here's the right way to do it, right? So I sit at the other side of the table, right, when advisors sit down in front of athletes and kind of talk about, oh, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, we're going to do this. I'm why. I'm the why guy. What are we doing this for? How's this going to help, et cetera, et cetera.
It sounds like you guys are such a perfect duo. Like you have such a great team. Like obviously different roads and different ways that you guys started, but it seems like it all meets down the middle of the line. I wanted to say that y'all. I saw that y'all don't just have NFL players. You have soccer players, lacrosse players. You have all different athletes.
Yeah.
So can you tell me a little bit about them? Who you have in those in your roster, and then is there a perfect number to what you kind of have?
Yeah, I mean, I think we look at our business as a service business, right? So it doesn't really matter the sport. It really matters the services that we can provide and feeling like we actually have the ability to provide value. So I think, we work with, newly we work with like a Kyla Novak, very big on TikTok, soccer player looking to kind of figure out, what her next steps are going to be from a pro perspective. And what was interesting about her is, we believe that the athlete should be a creator. And, she was a creator, right? And so, like, working with her is completely different than working with, a Jonathan Kamunga or Bones Hyland or, Denzel or even Travis, because she's someone who understands the creator economy. She's someone that understands content. So she's coming to us and saying, I want to do this. And, like, let's, really tie in all the services that we provide and, like, how to maximize what she wants to do in an efficient way. Mm-hmm. And so, I mean, I think everyone's different. But I think when you look at the services that we provide, we really, over the last decade or plus of, running the business, right, it's thinking about how do we have the overarching services, but then how do we meet our clients where they're at, right? Because everyone's different. Right? There's going to be, and so I think that's ultimately, there's no right or wrong, I would say, number of clients that we think we can have, or it's really about, we're fortunate to be in a position where we'll take on as many clients as we think we can help, right? And I think from there, that's all it is. And we're not this. I would say the other thing is that I think people differentiate between I think the misconception about a lot of management is that you're always around, right? Yeah. And I think from the beginning, we were very adamant about that is not an efficient model to grow a business. Right, like unless someone is paying for, they can hire an assistant, for that. So what we really try to focus on is because of the banking background is, how do we give our clients the best experience from a service perspective, and also the most information to be transparent. So that way, to answer that question of, what are you doing for me every day? So, making sure we're sending out monthly reports, making sure we're sending out, having touch bases and check-ins and just really ultimately giving our clients the information that they need to make the best decisions, but also to be able to, understand what we're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. And to that point, I mean, you look at Denzel Ward as a prime example. I mean, he was a top pick. He's really good. And if you sit down and talk to him, he'll tell you, I just want to be the best cornerback to ever play the game, make as much money as I can, and build businesses. He wants to get into real estate. He wants to do investments. And if you look at him versus Travis, where Travis loves being around behind the camera, loves doing TV, film, movies, things like that. Denzel's I just want to make sound investments in real estate, in gaming, in spaces that he's passionate about, right? And I think for us, it's interesting because if a marketing firm that could only focus on marketing was working with the Denzel Ward, they might not want to because he doesn't want to do many commercials, right? He will, but that's not his main focus. But because we add that piece of business building and wealth management, we're able to work with Denzel on that side as well and help him build his foundation and work with his parents and work with his mother to help do what she wants to do and his brother and what they want to do. So, I think, we provide a lot of things for our clients and we meet them where they're at. Like Aaron says, you don't have to be the most marketable person in the world because we can go out and help you find the right opportunities that you can get involved in that doesn't involve you being behind the camera all the time.
Yeah. And it sounds like like you said it originally something about that you wanted people to be a creator, right? Is that something that you still want from everybody that you're looking to hire? Or is it
I mean, I think, we look at it as, I would say, probably three types of clients, right? There's the client that, truly wants to be, I would say, quote unquote, a star, right? And how do you service that, right? That's, I would say, like a Travis, right? Yeah. Then there's the client that wants to leverage their platform in the best way possible to maximize their family and their value, right? I would say that's a Denzel, right? And then there's the client that literally could just be like, hey, I want, I'm a grinder, right? I might not be a Pro Bowler, all pro, but I'm someone that I think can learn and leverage my platform as an athlete and the access that I'm given to find the future career. And I think we don't right now have that client, right? Because I think, we're fortunate. A lot of our clients, I believe, are, could be stars, right? But at the same time, there's guys that we've come across, that there's guys that, or girls, that we're like, that's a very interesting, person, like Andrew Hawkins. Like, we knew Andrew Hawkins very, very early, and he's someone we've always been friendly with. And if you look at him, if you look at Nate Burleson, if you look at, those are just interesting, hardworking guys that leveraged the fact that, they had access through the NFL, and they became more successful when they retired, right? And, I think that's also a client that we're interested in. Yeah. And so I think it comes down to, like, ultimately it's very simple. We sit down, we meet with, whoever we're interested in working with, and we just have a conversation, because you're going to quickly understand, like, if they're a good fit and if they're not. And I would say what we really look for is, ultimately people that we could just be honest with, and people that, we can be honest with, right? I think that's the biggest thing, right?
I mean, I read that Travis said it's one thing to be represented by professionals, and then it's another thing to be represented by family. And it seems like there's an insane amount of trust between y'all specifically. What point does it evolve from being like a business and professional? What does it evolve from being a business relationship into family?
That's a good question.
I mean, I'm curious to hear your perspective on it, but what I would say is, like, I kind of cringe at the family narrative a little bit, because I think that's disrespectful to the family, right, and the friends, right? To me, I think it's a mind game. When people are like, when I hear in agent business or et cetera, like, we're family, like, we're not family, right? You're paying someone for a service, right? If you weren't paying them, they wouldn't be here. So you're not family, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Like, and I think I hate that line, because we are a service provider. You can fire us. So at the end of and we're very clear about that. So it's like, look, we're going to, so I think the line changes, because you're ultimately working with someone in a very intimate way to understand their passions, their goals, what drives them, what they're excited about, what they're happy about, what they're mad about, et cetera. And so you generally develop an amazing appreciation for the person, and you want to do what's best for them because you want them to succeed. And I think that's, what we care about and what drives us. And it's not all, roses, okay? You're dealing with very type A, very successful, driven men and women. And so when you're dealing with those types of people, like, you're going to argue, you're going to fight, you're going to, there's going to be a lot of that. But at the same time, if it's grounded in the sense that I'm trying to do what's best for you, and they understand that, that's when, you develop that trust. That's when you develop that, I would say, relationship, because it's not just bullshit, right? So it's not like we're someone that's not going to tell our client no, and if shit hits the fan, generally speaking, we're not going to be like, I told you so. No, it's a learning experience. Yeah. But because we probably told you our opinion on why we disagree with X, Y, and Z, and if you go through that, it's only going to make you stronger in your decision making. And it's not going to be a good or a bad thing, but it's going to be something that hopefully in the future you don't make that decision again.
Yeah. Do you have a different answer?
I mean, I have a different answer. I mean, I kind of get the way he's going with it, but I think that family is built by gaining that trust and doing the right thing for people, right? So, I mean, I have a ton of family members that, have no respect for me and will call me, when they need something, you know? So I think, I don't like the narrative of we're family, welcome to the family, et cetera, because, when you first sign a client, it's like you guys don't really know each other. But I think that family aspect comes from, being at all the games, or, setting up the opportunities, or getting them out of a situation they didn't want to be in, and you build that relationship over time, right? And I think that's when, yes, it is disrespectful to be, call somebody family that isn't, and try to play on that narrative. But when you get 5-10 years in with working with a guy, it's like your family now. You know what I mean? So Travis, Travis is family, right? That's family. Client we just signed, a couple months ago, Jonathan Kaminga, he's not family yet, but we're going to do everything we can to make sure he succeeds as much as he can. And that's really what family's supposed to be, right? Whether you guys are blood related or not, So, I see where Aaron's come from, because there's a lot of guys that do try to push that narrative, and it does kind of get cringy at sometimes. Like, hey, we still work for you. You know, we're not best friends. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But, you know, and for me too with Travis, it's like, you know, we kind of went through UC together, right? So it's a little bit different. And we talk about this all the time, like the level of involvement that we have in every aspect of Travis's life, Travis's mom's life, his brother, his dad. We kind of, we are kind of building that same thing with the Ward family, but it takes time. You know what I mean? So, I definitely don't agree with, the family aspect until you begin to treat somebody like family or feel like family. And there could be clients where it's all transactional, right? And it never gets personal. But we spend a lot of time doing what we're doing. We've kind of planned this for, our whole adult life. So there's definitely a family aspect to it for sure.
And speaking of family, I mean, I have a lot of great experiences and I have a great relationship with my family. I'm sure you do too. Obviously, the two of you guys get along pretty well.
Depends on the day.
For
it
today.
Looks like it. No,
for right now, you do.
No, we do.
And for as far as experiences go with these players and with your clients, what are some of the most memorable moments that you have with Travis, for instance?
A couple days ago, we were talking. Him and his brother have this podcast.
Yeah,
and
of course.
It was we were in the car driving, and it was me. Travis, his brother, and then Aaron, and then me, and we were just talking through, some things, and it just got heated. But it was a great heated conversation where it's funny because I think Aaron and Jason are kind of the same person, and me and Travis are kind of the same person.
Yeah.
So Aaron and Travis are talking, and me and Jason are laughing because Aaron and Travis are going at each other. But those are the fun moments, right? Because then you end the conversation with the best possible outcome and how to approach things moving forward. You know what I mean? But but if we're talking just fun moments, I mean, Super Bowl, the first Super Bowl was crazy.
Yeah.
Second Super Bowl was crazy, but the first Super Bowl, I remember we were all in the same section, and it was just very, 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 very emotional. You think about the whole 8 years and what he had to go through, and all the things and all the doubters, and and to come out and win the Super Bowl in the way they did it, and him ended up being the player that he is. It's just that was probably one of the best moments. The second Super Bowl was all right, when's the next one? You know what I mean? I think I remember that. It was we were okay, yeah, next.
Run it back.
Run it back. You know what I mean? So yeah, that'd be. We can talk about a million different. From Coachellas to concerts to Super Bowl parties. It's been pretty amazing.
And that's what makes your job so special, is having that bond with that person, specifically getting to that family point. Going back, getting to that point and getting that trust from your clients is so awesome and imperiled to your business, right?
Yeah. And there's another story I do want to tell, because this was it was a key moment. I think it was San Francisco Super Bowl, and we were new in the business, sleeping on couches, didn't have any money, just wanted to be around to kind of build and network. And I had to take my PTO because I was working at a job, and I was headed to San Fran, and the airline lost my luggage. And I had a suit and everything. We were about to go to the NFL players party. The NFLPA was throwing. I'm I cannot go to this party without wearing a suit. And I was texting Aaron all nervous or whatever. And Trav just gives me $700 and was go buy a suit. And you know what I mean? And we were had to be 25, 24, 23 or something like that. And I'm
Crazy.
That was probably one of the, I tell that story all the time. That was probably one of the moments where I'm oh wow, this is a good dude. You know what I mean? So
I'll tell you my probably most memorable moment was SNL. And mainly because, I thought when we started working together, I was I think you could be in film and television. And I think ultimately, we originally started the business for life after sports. And
right.
So, it was always for me thinking about what is that, right? And I think, SNL was something, Travis does not ask us really for anything, or doesn't even say, hey, I want to do this, right? It's more so us bringing ideas and figuring out based on some of the things he talks about. And so but the one thing he said he would love to do was SNL. So it was a 3-year process to figure out, how to, do SNL, right?
Yeah.
And so, when he hosted SNL, that to me was, I would say the most memorable moment, because ultimately it also, you see, how he performed, on it, and then you see the after effects. And I think, for me, that was, cool to see, because I think ultimately, we believe that he has a big opportunity when he, is done in entertainment, if he wants to do that. And for him to kind of show people what we've been seeing, for a long time was, was cool.
Yeah, that's awesome and so rewarding for real. What about day to day in your business? I mean, is there specific times where it's like heavier and more? There's a lot going on. Specifically asking in season versus out of season. Clearly, you have a lot of different athletes, so obviously seasons go like this for y'all. But like as far as like if we're just like if we put football in question right now, is in season and out of season a completely different thing for you guys?
I think the misconception in the business is, and we were at the quarterback premiere. I don't know when this airs, but we were at the quarterback premiere last night, and that's the Netflix show that Pat Mahomes and Marcus Mariota and Kirk Cousins, were involved in. Wanted to show support to Pat and Jacqueline and Chris and his team. And we were walking past I was walking past the bar with Chris Cabot, Pat's agent. And I was just like, yeah, man, can't wait till the season starts. And he just laughed. And and I think the misconception is like during your client's season is actually, I would say it's busy but not busy. And what I mean by that is it's a controlled busy because you know the schedule.
Yeah.
The off season with any client, any sport, is always the busiest because it's not controlled. And it could be any which way. You got to condense a lot of things into a small period of time.
Yeah.
And so it's way more travel. It's way more random. It's, and it's way busier where like seasons are like, whoo, thank you. Like, okay, got a schedule.
It's crazy because I actually thought obviously the opposite. The misconception is completely there. So when you guys win the Super Bowl 2020, when you win again, is it afterwards that it gets crazy, or is it like, I mean, you're going to the Super Bowl, it's the craziest thing ever.
2020, it was a weird year because of COVID.
Right.
So like right when the Super Bowl happened, it was busy for like a month, and then it died. But it died down because of COVID, right? But like this year, it goes Super Bowl literally. So like Super Bowl experiences are like you're up all night, okay? Yeah. And so I literally get a call from the producers at SNL at like 8 a.m. Phoenix time, and maybe earlier, but I didn't answer. And so I'm like, all right. They're like, hey, we want Travis to host, and we need an answer by like 2 days or less. And I'm like, I don't think he's asleep yet. And so from the game. And so literally, I got a lukewarm response. He was like, man, that's soon. And then I knew we were going to do Jimmy Fallon. And so Jimmy wanted to announce it. And so that kind of forced him to do it. And so, but I mean, ever since then, it was like you go right from there. You go right from Super Bowl. You go to the parade. And this is specific to Travis. And then, then we went to SNL, which is like a week boot camp. And then you go to all the other things. And in the meantime, you have all your, like in a traditional non-Super Bowl period, you're always trying to figure out with the client, what their off season is going to look like. Where do they want to train? Do they want to go to fashion weeks? Do they want to go to festivals? What are experiences they want to have? And you're always trying to plan that ahead of time. Yeah. So that way you can, quote unquote, have a rough schedule. But yeah, man, off season, no matter what it is, if you're working in the business or you want to work in the business, just prepare to be busy.
Crazy. And obviously it's people's dream to go to the Super Bowl, just to watch it with your eyes.
Yeah.
It's a dream come true to have a friend playing in the Super Bowl, but it's even crazier when they win. Can you describe the emotions of the first time seeing him win the Super Bowl?
We probably got different emotions, but I'll let you take this one first.
I mean,
that's my emotional guy right here.
I literally cried when he won the Super Bowl. Like, we were like, it was like the whole family were sitting in the same section. Like, I remember like his longest friends, Harry, Kumar, Eric. I mean, we were all there like, this is insane that he just won that. And it was, probably one of the most emotional things in sports. I mean, I also cried when the Cavs won the championship too, and I didn't know anybody on the team.
Like I said.
You know what I mean? But it was tears of joy, you know what I mean? But yeah, it was amazing. I mean, seeing somebody like that win the Super Bowl, right? Because again, like I said, I was at Cincinnati with him. I was there when he found out he wasn't about to be playing, right? And like I was there, when he was working at a call center, when he wasn't on the team just to make money, et cetera. So like seeing all of that happen, and it's just a culmination of things, seeing him actually winning, I'm like, oh wow, you know what I mean? And to Aaron's point, definitely more of the people, emotional type of person. Like I was probably with him in Arizona at 8 a.m. When he got that text, because that was definitely a fun night. We were up all night, partying and celebrating. But yeah, it was super emotional having somebody like you said, having somebody win it, and having somebody you're friends with win it, having somebody you work with win it. You know what I mean? Like it's just the trifecta. Honestly, like you can't ask for anything better. Like the come up is very, very real, very real.
Yeah, I'm not that emotional as a person. It's more about like thinking, like I'm more like process and planning. So like for me, because we experienced a few Super Bowls, it's all about the work up into Super Bowl week, and then the work up until, because like you don't know if someone's going to make it to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, no.
So you have to actually plan for Super Bowl week, which is usually for most guys an opportunity in the NFL to make the most money or build the best relationships to start the next year. So you're planning literally usually in October the year before, the year prior, so during the season, of what Super Bowl week looks like. And then for all your clients in the NFL. And then you're having to figure out, okay, if we're going to have a bunch of guys in town, what do they need to be doing, where they should be going, all the other stuff. And then you have to, plan this, but like certain guys, if they win a Super Bowl, if they lose a Super Bowl, if they lose in the playoffs, they might not want to go to the Super Bowl. So all those plans change quickly. Or if you're doing from a deal standpoint, if you're talking to brands, you're organizing a schedule, well, you don't know if someone's going to go to the Super Bowl until after the divisional game. So, like, if they are going to go to the Super Bowl, you plan one scenario. If they don't go to the Super Bowl, you need to have a lot of deals in place so that they can make the most amount of money they want to make that year in a week's period of time. You have 2 days to lock those deals in, right? So it's like, for me, it's like, all right, you have to have a lot of different scenario planning. Then you got to handle the media side. You got to handle the press side. You got to handle what happens if they win the Super Bowl. So then after they win it, it's like, okay, fuck, like, let's get to work, right? And you have your whole team, like, especially we were on the West Coast. We have some of our team on the East Coast, also like working and figuring out like all hours of the night, like everything, because you have a very short time to do things. And then, like I said, so that for me, it's like, all right, like when it's over, it's like, whoo, like,
yeah,
all right.
Thank God. It's crazy.
Much.
It's crazy how much you're planning for every angle of that.
You have to.
Yeah, you're very forward thinkers. Like it seems that way, especially the way you're talking. Like you're thinking so far in advance, which is why you're good at what you do. I love that you're helping athletes to get more than just their sport. So I want to get into that for a second because I think that they are. Obviously, I worked with Gronkowski on a movie, Boss Level, where he plays the gunner. And I just interviewed Henry Penzi for the second episode that we just dropped.
Okay.
And he talks about how he wants him to be the Arnold Schwarzenegger or like that next Stallone, and how they're looking to put him in different things because they're more than just an athlete.
Yep.
And you get that, and you've said that. So your strong suit is business tactics for athletes to receive liquid income outside of professional sports. So can you elaborate on other employment opportunities that are off the field?
So when you say employment, what do you mean, like jobs?
Different things that can help them, make sure that they're.
Yeah.
And that's you too. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I think for an athlete, when it comes, I'll let him answer the job question.
Yeah.
But I think while they're playing, I like to as he's using their platform to find good marketing opportunities, I like to work with our clients to use their platform to find good investment opportunities, right? Because I think when you get at a high level and you're working with top private equity firms, it's not necessarily really about the money. It's more about how can you add value to a deal when you're as an athlete on that cap table. And like, we go above and beyond, right? We have a great team. We're able to sit down, and I'll talk to her. Her name's Danielle. She works on our team. She's the head of strategy. And I'll talk to her and I'll say, hey, what is a deck we can put together to present to this firm to say we want our client to invest in this round or whatever it is. And we've been very successful with it, right? I mean, I'm the guy that will literally read a press release and see who's named in that press release and go email this person and say, hey, I think this will be a fun deal for my clients. Here's who we work with, and here's how we work with them, and here's how they can add value to your brand. When I say we've invested in Olipop recently, and
really?
Olipop, and I think is doing tremendous. It's growing off the charts.
It's amazing.
But I was in LA hanging out. We were doing something, and I read this article about Olipop, and that's interesting. emailed the dude, emailed me right back, and
Yeah.
ended up, getting 3 or 4 of our clients in the round, and that's how they make life after sports, right? Because when you're getting 3-4x on your money, it just compounds. So like for me,
Yeah.
it's just about getting them in the right deals, getting them in the right room, meeting with the right CEOs, owners, business people, and like having a coordinated strategy around that, which literally the what do you call it? The context of it is literally the exact same, right? If Aaron's talking to a brand, he's building those relationships over years, right? But it's more about how can they pay the client money versus the client giving them money to be a part of their business, right?
Right.
And so that's how I look at it. There's not necessarily, unless I have a client, we haven't had this, that says I want to be a private equity guy, like work for a fund or something like that. Then I would go that route. But I'm more about how do you make the right investment so that when you're done playing, it starts compounding on each other. You build those right relationships. So when the next, I don't know, name the best company out right now, when the next Apple, is, in its infant stages, the people involved are calling you and like, hey, I like this guy. Let's give him a shot. You put $100,000 in and you make 10 million. You know what I mean? I think that's
crazy.
That's kind of where I love to play. Like, yeah, no, yeah. I mean, look, Denzel's a prime example. I mean, Hilo is a great example, but Denzel Ward invested in a company called eFuse, and, it was in a very, very early stage. He cares about gaming. His mom, cares about what Denzel gets in, and the CEO is amazing, and that company grew, from, modest $8 million valuation to $100+ million.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So those are the opportunities that I look for to kind of grow our client off the field.
And at the same time, I think the misconception is like good deals are hard to find.
Yeah.
Like good investments, good private equity deals are hard to find. If you're an athlete and you're getting pitched an investment opportunity, and it's not, 9 times out of 10, it's probably not that great. Because if it was great, they wouldn't need you.
And let's move into marketing. I think you can speak to this. You guys work with the biggest brands in the game.
Yeah.
Like the biggest corporations. You got Nike, you got Gatorade, you have Pepsi, Visa, T-Mobile. You have tons of different brands. What's that like? And what's the importance of that sponsorship for them? Because obviously your life after football. So what is the importance of having those sponsors?
Well, I would say it depends on the client, and it depends on the client's goal, right? If the client's goal is to do something in media and entertainment when they're done, well, I think part of the value of the sponsor is elevating that client in a way that shows other people and using their marketing dollars and their media budgets to elevate the name, the image, the likeness of that person. Mm-hmm. Right. And then also, again, on the creative side, we're really, I would say involved to make sure that whatever our clients are doing, they're being shown in a way that's true to them. Right. Because, it's very simple, that simple mindset or that simple premise of you only have one time to make a first impression. And so there's a lot of times that we're always trying to make sure that, when our clients are being seen, they're being seen in the light that they want to be seen, but it's also putting them in a position for the next opportunity. Right. And I think that's the biggest thing that we're focused on. And so we're here for the ESPYs. Right? We have a lot of young clients. We want them to be on the red carpets. And then people are like, oh, why? Well, those images go viral usually. Those images are good images to have. But it's also starting to showcase you outside of your helmet. And if you're in the NBA, you have a fashion tunnel every time you walk into the game.
Yeah.
Now, but it's showing you in a situation where you're amongst other athletes, you're amongst other entertainers, you're amongst other executives, and you never know who's going to be in the room. And so just showing up a little bit, puts you in a position where for the next opportunity that you might not otherwise know you're going to get. Because nowadays, brands, they don't care that you play sports, right? They care that you're going to connect them to a consumer that they have a hard time reaching, which is usually the 18 to 34 demographic.
Right, the younger crowd.
Right? And so where's that younger crowd at? They're on TikTok. They're on social.
Right.
They're looking at the cultural sites. They're looking at the fashion blogs. And if you're showing up repeatedly, that's how you get opportunities. It's not surprising that Kyle Kuzma, Jordan Poole, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and the NBA specifically get great opportunities. If you look at Stephon Diggs signing with ASICS and you look at other stuff like that, it's like, yes, he's a great football player, but he's also putting himself out there by being in Paris for Fashion Week. He's putting himself out there by doing creative campaigns when it comes to fashion and also our how they post. Right? Their social media accounts. You don't need millions and millions of followers. But if you have a cool aesthetic that brand enjoys and likes, they're probably going to work with you, right? And so it's not one of those, I would say one size fits all things, but I think there's just a lot of misconceptions about how to get a deal.
Yeah.
And, I think that's the biggest, I would say, challenge in our business is ultimately educating people on how a deal comes about.
Right.
Biggest,
And
one of the biggest.
Do those clients call y'all? I mean, specifically, or are you reaching out? Like, again, you
Yeah,
said,
I mean,
like,
90% of the
client.
time, no one's calling us, right?
Okay,
I mean,
yeah.
it's 90% of the time, it's doing a lot of cold calling over years to make sure that people know who to go to.
Right.
Like that's very, very challenging. And I would say the number one thing you hear from brands when they don't want to work with someone is because they don't have confidence in the person that they're talking to can bring the deal. Right. And so if you think about it from like the one thing I always challenge athletes on is like have a tight team, and it meaning like the mindset of I'm going to have 1 million people work for me to bring 1 million different deals is not the right mindset because the business and the market isn't that big. So if 1 million people are talking on one person's behalf, there's no confidence that deal can get done because no one knows who to go to, right? And so if you ask the first thing we do when we sign a client, we make sure every system, every email, every database is pushed out like that we work with someone. And then we're constantly challenging and talking to people about who we work with because we want to make sure in the event an opportunity comes about, they know who to go to.
Yeah. I want to talk about y'all's dynamic real quick because I want to know, other than working with clients, what are some of the challenges that you guys face as family working with one another, or is there even, being twin brothers, are there, is collaborating something that you guys really hold to be something the most special part of y'all's job? And what are some of the challenges that you guys do see as family?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, the fact that we are family it hasn't really been that challenging. I mean, I will literally tell him anything; he'll literally tell me anything, and we're not going to tiptoe. We're not going to sugarcoat.
I think that's unique to our family though, because a lot of people are surprised and they're like, "Oh man!" Like, but I think growing up, our family was always like, "Look, business is business, family's family. They're not the same."
For
right.
Sure.
And so when a lot of times you see people, I would say families get into situations because people take shit personal. And it's like, oh, we're family. Oh, it doesn't fucking matter.
Yeah.
Like this is business. Like if I was your boss or if I was your coworker and we're not family, I'd be saying the same thing. Right. So
For sure.
I think we grew up in that environment. And so we're able to be completely honest. We're able to be completely, transparent. We're able to say whatever we want because it's not a situation of, we're going to hurt each other's feelings, right? And I think that's
like you said, you get in that heated conversation. I can only imagine the heated conversation.
I mean, I look at every deal we talk about. I look at it as we're about to make an investment in that brand, and it's completely different. But I feel like the conversations we have helps us get to the best deal for our clients because I'm looking at marketing budgets of brands. I'm looking at cap tables of brands. So like if a brand comes to Aaron and says, we want your client to do this, I'm always going to be the one, well, why can't they double that number? Right? You know what I mean? Or why can't, right? And sometimes he's like, that's not how it works, but it still gets the mind running. It gets us thinking about things in different ways. And also I'll add, like, on a personal level, we're not the Doublemint twins. We're not identical. We don't like the same things. We're completely different, right? So like when it came to building A&A, it was more like he knew what he wanted to do, and I was like, okay, I don't want to do that. Like I'm not creative. He'll send a creative for like a commercial, and I'll be like, oh, this is amazing, and he'll be like, no, it's not. I'm like, oh, okay, So like I'm more of business analytical, right? And I think we watch our parents, right? Our dad was just like him when it comes to business. My mom probably more like me when it comes to finance and the numbers and the crunching. So like, it works that way. I think a lot of families, if we were the same person, we'd probably butt heads, but we're completely opposite.
We were always told though, like, you have to figure out your role and what your responsibilities are. Otherwise, it's never going to work, right? And so I think that's just if you're ever going to work with family, understand the roles, right?
Yeah.
And understand the value that you're bringing to the table. And and also like don't use family as a crutch, right? Don't don't be like, oh, we're family. It doesn't matter, right?
The last, we're nearing the end, and I want to get into an advice section. But before that, I want to ask you: Are there moments where you see? I mean, I watch a lot of when you watch football or you watch basketball, there's a lot of post game interviews. My brother does a couple of them. He works for the Mavericks and he works for the Cowboys, and he does a lot of post game interviews where you're are there moments where that your clients are saying, to be honest with you, that not necessarily post game, but any scenario where they say thank you for all the hard work that you've done? Or is it private? Do they call you? Have you ever had moments where they call you? Have you been out in public where you guys are, at a club or something, and they pull you aside and go, man, this would not be possible without you, and get super sentimental? Are there moments like that within your workspace?
Yeah, there's definitely been moments. There's definitely been moments, and we keep those. I at least appreciate those moments. But at the same time, I will say, it's not one of those things where we demand or expect that, right? Because, I think, the challenging part about being in management is you are very involved, but at the same time, I think you should be like a servant leader, right? And I think, when, people joke, when, people laugh when I'm like, they're like, oh, like, what do you do? And I'm like, oh, I'm a glorified babysitter, right? And it's like, and it's kind of tongue in cheek, but at the same time, it's like your job is essentially to make sure people get to where they need to be on time and to educate them about what they're getting into in a space that doesn't provide a lot of information. Right?
You get paid better than a babysitter is what I gotta say.
Day, man. There's certain babysitters I've heard out there, like, flying on G4s and stuff. But I think truly though, we when you ever heard the term liar's poker, right? And all marketing in the sports landscape, all it is liar's poker, right? Because no one's telling you information. There's no database that has everybody's contracts, right? Everyone, I always joke with him on the finance side, when it comes to marketing, everyone's a genius. When it comes to finance, no one's a genius. So you don't get a lot of pushback. But everybody, when it comes to marketing,
I'm like, Aaron, how did I get this done this fast and it's taking you forever?
Everybody when it comes to marketing has an opinion, and it's just like, okay,
that's true.
Like it's just like, okay, yeah, man, you just woke up as a PhD in marketing and advertising, great, But it's one of those things where, so like again, data doesn't lie, and also like being transparent on the process, right, lets them understand, okay, here's the situation, in showing them. Right, because you want them to make a good decision, and I think that's, the biggest thing, right? I think so. It's like getting our flowers here and there is appreciated, but I think it's ultimately, again, when you're so in it and you're so in the process of just like, there's a million different things that are going on. We have amazing team of 6 internal, but then you look at the external teams. I mean, there's a lot of people involved with everything that we're doing, and so you're kind of, you can't even really enjoy, I would say, the process until, we're old, honestly, because it's just so, it feels like yesterday it was January, and we're in July, right? And you just want to keep driving value for the clients you have. Look at some new clients that you're evaluating, and you're constantly thinking about, what does this person need to do to get to where they want to get to?
Yeah.
And so when they when they thank you, it's honestly like, oh, thanks. I mean, it's a weird reaction because you're not sitting there like in this moment where you're just like, there's nothing else going on. So it's kind of like, oh, you have to like stop and be like, man, that's really cool. I really appreciate it. Well, now I need this though.
Plus, this is our job, It's like this is our version of a 9 to 5. So like you don't have, you work at your normal 9 to 5. You don't have people coming in and praising your graces and like, no, this is what we pay you to do. You know what I mean?
So that's another thing. Yeah, that's a perfect way to put it though, because it's just like, it's one of those things where you kind of tell people like, this is the job, right? And I think
it's a fun one.
Yeah, it's a fun one, and it's challenging, and but I don't expect anything, and I think if any aspiring managers out there, I would say don't expect anything. Like you're not owed anything.
To be paid.
No, for sure. But you're gonna get a kick out of this because we actually because we weren't able to get the audio together today. We actually had a clip sent in so that you guys could hear some like thank yous from one of your clients. I know we do this on every show and we like to call in people, but I feel that it's important for you guys to hear how amazing it is, the things that you do and how affected your clients are. So just for a brief moment, we're going to listen in on, this is one of your clients telling you, thank you. Hey guys, there's one thing that has stayed consistent in my research of the Eanes brothers, and that is that each one of their clients gives back. And I know that a lot of athletes give back, but it's some special cases. These athletes are doing some amazing things with their family. And this one specifically is Denzel Ward and his family's foundation, Make Them Know Your Name. Nicole, Denzel's mother, as you briefly heard on the earlier part of the show, has become family to the Eanes brothers the way Travis has. Nicole was kind enough to take a moment out of her day to talk to us about the Eanes brothers, their impact on their family, and more. So without further ado, Nicole. All right. Hey, thank you so much for coming on the show. I will start off with a question. What impact have the Eanes brothers made on your family?
The impact that Aaron and Andre has had on Denzel's career has been significant. Aaron and Andre know so many people. They have so many connections, and they are so unselfish in the fact that they do whatever they can to make sure that they are putting Denzel as well as our family in front of the right people and given the opportunity to further his career off the field. An example of this is that they're always inviting Denzel and our family to events and give us the opportunity to speak with them, to meet these people, to partner with them so that, again, we could just further our careers or Denzel's career, not only on the field but off the field. And it's just been a tremendous relationship. They've been so unselfish with sharing the plethora of resources and connections that they have with our family.
That's great. And how has your relationship with the manager strengthened over time?
Our relationship with A&A Management has definitely strengthened over time. Honestly, Aaron, Andre, Sarah, their team, they're like family to us. We know their family, they know our family, and the bond between us, all of us, just continues to grow and grow. And I really appreciate that because not only are we able to do business, but we can feel comfortable knowing that we are working with someone that we truly trust, like our family.
And lastly, what memories do you look forward to making in the future with Aaron and Andre?
The memories that we look forward to making with Aaron and Andre and their team is to continue to build on the great bond that we've already started and have achieved, and just looking forward to accomplishing more goals together and continuing to strive for the best and seeing much success.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Nicole, for coming on. Guys, that is all for our special guest of today, and we're going to go right back into the show. I want to get into some advice with you guys, and I want to talk about something that you learned. I want to talk about something that you've learned that applies to everyday life. Something that you learned in your career that is applied to your everyday life.
You want to start? I got to start?
Yeah, I mean, I would say always be curious. I feel like that's the number one thing I've learned, right? And I think when you're in the sports space or sports and entertainment space, everything changes every day, And I think if you look at, like I was talking about earlier, if you look at just the last 10 years of business, the rise of social media, the rise of crypto, the rise of NFTs, the rise
and fall.
Yeah,
Yeah. I can talk on that for a little while.
I mean, the rise of the athlete as media, right? And if you think about the changing narrative and the changing landscape of, athlete-led media properties, right? And so if you weren't, always trying to learn and always trying to be curious about, every different thing, well, then ultimately you're not going to be able to be that successful, in my opinion, in any business now, because every single industry is changing every day. And I think, that curiosity can keep you, in a situation where you're constantly trying to just better yourself, better your knowledge base, and then ultimately better, your position, I would say, in this world.
I want to interject real quick and tell you that my mom actually, a funny story. She sends me quotes every single day. Like it depends on what's going on. We'll talk on the phone once a week or two, a couple times a week, and she'll hear what's going on, and then she'll send me quotes of the day. Funny enough, when I told her I was meeting you guys, she started researching and looking you guys up, and not only that, but she saw your quote that said, "Be patient and curious." And she sent it to me just like the other day, and it's you just said it when I asked you said be curious, and it seems like that's being patient is such a hard thing to do within y'all's industry. Can you talk about being patient a little bit?
I'll take that one. That was literally what I was going to use. I mean, it probably comes from all the interviews we've been doing. Like on the patient side, for me, that's probably one of the biggest things, right? I mean, because we were fortunate to own the entire business, right? We didn't get investors and we didn't give up. We didn't, but it was a long 10 years, right? And like it was a patient 10 years, not only for people who want to get in this business, like you have to be patient because everyone doesn't get good clients. Everybody doesn't get Travis Kelce of the world, but people also don't realize Travis Kelce was not Travis Kelce. It took years for him to build and grow. But also going back to when we sit down with clients, they always want to know when the next deal is coming. Where's the next deal? Who are you guys talking to? What are these brands talking about? Et cetera, et cetera. But it's a process. It's a process of consistent following up. It's a process of going to things like the SPs and getting to know people and building yourself up, right? And being in the right rooms at the right time. It's no different for managers. It's no different. You need to go to the Super Bowls. You need to go to the All-Star weekends. You need to be in the right rooms at the right time. And then by doing all that, when you get that client, you already know all the right people to talk to and to be around and et cetera. So, and I'll also add, I mean, for what we started in 2012, and I don't know how many years it's been now, but for the majority of those years, both me and him worked different jobs, right? It wasn't always full-time focused on A&A management, but those jobs were jobs that could add value to what we knew the end goal was going to be, right? Whether it's me working in finance and like learning that side of the business until the business was able to sustain a salary for me to live, and I also have a beautiful daughter, right? So that kind of forced me to focus on, at an early age on the bigger picture, but then also with him working in facilities, working with the Bowling Green football team and things like that, right? So it's patience is key. Patience and curiosity, it has to be key to life because when you're not patient, you make decisions based on emotion, and oftentimes it doesn't end up being the right decision.
Yeah, I mean, I think directly when you really look at if we look at our business and nobody, I would say those are great for anybody, but I think if you look at our business in particular, you're around really rich people here at times. You're around really famous people at times. You're around, sometimes good people, sometimes bad people. And if you're not, always trying to learn, you could be swayed by things that otherwise you probably shouldn't be swayed by. But then at the same time, if you're not patient, you might think that, I should be living this lifestyle that I see this other person living or that other person living. But it might not actually be the real lifestyle they're living. It might just be what you're seeing. And I think, it's always, good to, we really try to harp, on all of our employees, and we really try to harp on each other. Like, at the end of the day, like, when we talk about being a servant leader, like, you're doing a job, right, first and foremost. All the other stuff is great, but, like, you're doing a job. Your job is to make sure your client can live the best life they want to live, and then you can help them live the best life for the longest time that they want to live.
Yeah.
Right. And if that's the goal and if that's the job and, that's the focus, every action that you're making as a business but every action as individuals should be geared towards how are we being able to put our clients in the best situation to thrive. Right. Mm-hmm. And that's going to force you to make different decisions. Right. And so the patient part was because half the time when people see athletes, they assume they should be doing X, Y, and Z without actually living, walking, I would say experiencing what they go through on a day-to-day basis. And so it's very hard to advise if you just take the one question we talked about earlier on the financial side, people be like, how can they go broke or how could they do this? But you're essentially putting your experiences, your knowledge base, your values on someone else that has literally none of that. Right? Half the time, most of these athletes maybe go to 3 years of college. Half the time, they maybe come from a middle-class family. right? And so now you're expecting them at the same time, when they don't have that level of trust with like sophisticated advisors, and they don't have a sophisticated family sometimes, good or bad, that is dealt with hundreds of millions or multiple millions of dollars. And they're put in a position where they have to make these decisions on who the people in their team is at a very short period of time, when at the same time they're getting no information truly about the teams, because they're not in a position to ask great questions. Right? It's like, how do you expect them to make the best decision for them? Right? And so that's when you see the horror stories, it's usually not at the fault of the athlete, in my opinion. Sometimes it is. But at the same time, it's generally in a situation that they weren't even given the opportunity to make the best decision because the information wasn't available to them.
What about the future of where you guys are heading right now? Like, it sounds like there's so many things that you have going on that have happened over the past couple of years that have been explosive and amazing. What's the future look like for the Eanes brothers?
Yeah, look, like we said, everything that happened this year has been in process for 3 years. So it's kind of one of those things where people are like, oh my God, I can't believe what you guys did. This has been 3 years of work. So it's one of those things like, if we're looking at the next 3 to 4 years, we're really looking at, with certain clients, how do we build in the biggest media business, right? And then with other clients, it's like, how do we break you into being, a star in your own right? Right. And then at the same time, how are we continuing to put opportunities in front of them to maximize their value in the business community? And then also we're looking to constantly challenge a lot of our clients about, content creation in an efficient way, PR, right? Getting their name, story, image out there, and making them a brand. Because at the end of the day, no brand wants to work with someone just because their name. They want to work with them because they're showcasing and aligning with their values as an organization. And I think we are constantly trying to get better at advising our clients in a way so that they can be that brand that brands want to latch to.
Yeah.
Which is, again, when you talk about patience, it takes time. Right? Rome wasn't built in a day. Neither was a brand.
And I think we're fortunate enough to that's been our focus since we started the company, right? So now I think the sports world, the media world, the entertainment world is moving towards needing that representation, or a management company like ours, instead of just an agent that's traditionally supposed to handle those type of things, So I think that's the future for us. We're kind of going to keep this same. I mean, like you said, we're learning new things every day. So when it comes to our foundation, it's laid. It's more about working with more clients and getting the word out there more. With the younger clients that are reaching out and the families that are reaching out that want to get in. Want what's best for their son or daughter, and work with those management teams. It doesn't have to be us. I would encourage all young athletes with NIL going on and all this stuff is to find that core team that can be there, and teach you and give you the information and provide as much information as possible so you can make the most objective decision. So, future for A&A, I mean, we're just going to grow and get bigger and get better. I mean, that's how I see it. You know what I mean? Next 50 years, so. Yeah.
I want to say thank you guys. The fresh perspective is amazing. Y'all are awesome. I mean, I each one of you guys has such a great personality, and on top of that, the stories that you just told and everything that you have going on, I'm honored to be able to sit here with you. Honestly,
man, we appreciate you coming out here to do this. I mean, it's been great.
This is awesome. So thank you so much.
Thank you
for joining.
Thank you, man.
The come up, and we will talk soon.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Nice. That was fun.
Thank you guys.
It's crazy how much you hear in headphones.
Bro, I love that.
You hear the whole street, right?
I was like, wait.
Literally everything out there.